president himself by having the right people at the right helm of affair. Like he actually make sure that he still retain Mele Kyari, because I'm sure that Mele Kyari must have been doing something that impressed the president for president to say yes, Mele Kyari, come and continue to do this job. Perhaps we need to have professional in that area generally, and we start, since it's now a private sector, we need to look at it more, but I still have issues on the relationship between the government and the oil and gas, the NNPC, because you recall when Mele Kyari want to go for money to make sure that we don't experience increments in the dollar relation trouble to really get to import. I think he still have to go to president to get is not. We must also make sure that we separate those two things so that at least we can run this business as is expected and make profit as expected. But I think the major thing is this, just the leadership. If the leadership can take the bull by the horn and make sure he put the right people at the helm of affair, we will develop, because I think we are not short of professionals, we're only short of good direction and corruption that is bedeviling the sector itself. It's a big issue in that area when it comes to corruption. We must make sure we tame it to have a good development in Nigeria.
That's an interesting point of view. I mean, in your words, we're not short of professionals, we're only short of direction. Right. Let's look at growth projections. We've seen quite a number of growth projections from diverse bodies, including the IMF. I believe the IMF at some point this year downgraded Nigeria's economic growth forecast by 0.3% to about 2.9% for the full year of 2023. Do you completely agree with these projections? And if not, what are your projections, growth projections for this year? As
it is, Nigeria is in a very tight situation where we have issue of inflation, we have issue of foreign exchange, we have issue of unification. You know, a lot of issues are affecting Nigeria, but not Nigerian problem only. I think it's a global issue. I will agree with the IMF, and I also say that then if you look at Nigerian budget 2024, I want to agree with one analysis I saw on the Guardian newspaper this morning, that Nigeria is over ambitious. That's the way they put that English, and I agree with them, because you can't say we have inflation at 27%, 0.33%, and you are projecting 21% for 2024. You can see that we are actually over. But I want a situation whereby will be more realistic. If you also listen to the Cardoso, the CBN governor, he also made some statement during the CIBN that also will help the economy. But we are tired of rhetoric in Nigeria. We want a natural and flow. He said he will return CBN to his priority, which I agree. Like I mentioned earlier, we should shave intervening in what we are not supposed to intervene. If you want to intervene through fund, go give it to the necessary handlers to handle that. But for projects, I think 3% will be a good one, because hopefully things will still get better. We have very short period, but I think, you know, the fallout of what has happened is getting reduced to an extent. And government has also come out and said they are realizing about 1 trillion from the removal of fuel subsidy monthly. We want to see how that will also come into the economy and help. But the purchasing power for Nigerians are very poor. We are just not that. We don't just have that strength to really purchase and spend more money. Perhaps if you look at most things that domestic houses also spend more, like drugs, you see they are also increased. So purchasing power is quite is a problem for Nigeria at this point in time.
Indeed, and you touched on inflation for a short second, where you rightly mentioned that inflation currently stands at double digits, and we've had that for a long time. We also saw inflation hit the highest level in over 18 years. As the year runs to an end or gets to a close, what are your inflation projections as well? I say this because, like you rightly mentioned, we saw the budget projections for next year with the figures that they had put there for inflation, for exchange rate, and all of that, which you rightly pointed that you don't completely agree with, especially with the inflation figure that is there. But what are your projections, say, for the months of November and December as the year comes to a close?
Right. I wouldn't know because of the challenge of purchasing power of Nigeria. But naturally, November, December always attract more purchasing, right? So it's always make the inflation to also go up to an extent because of the way people move things. But because of the purchasing power, but will it stop people from traveling? Will it stop people from doing those activities? Trust Nigeria, we'll still find our way to do that. So I see the inflation still moving up to an extent. Maybe by January, February, it might be coming down, but that it will come down by December, I don't expect that.
And speaking of the CBN moving away from the, how did the CBN governor put it? It's interventionist sides
Projects, yes.
to doing the primary responsibilities of the CBN. Now we are moving into the year 2024. How do you foresee that playing out? I ask this because, like the CBN governor also mentioned, speaking of Olayemi Cardoso, he said the Monetary Policy Committee will not be meeting as often as it has met in the past. So we do not expect so much interaction of the CBN with the market. But what do you foresee in the year 2024 regarding all these, the new policies that he has introduced?
I will not agree with the CBN governor, Dr. Olayemi Cardoso, that the MPC will not be. The fact remains that